Hello, this is Lisa Lee. I am searching for something here. I sat down and I felt like I'm not going to do anything serious. My break right now, the break that I'm taking is from serious, like intense philosophy, because I just want to process anything at this point. Like rather than like channeling like the hardest like stuff in the entire world, I want to start processing some of this stuff in like regular life kind of terms. And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you know, guys, what about like our unfinished business? What about unfinished business? And what about like whether it's from a past life? And I kind of almost feel like, what is the story that you're working out right now? Like, what is this unfinished business? Like, there's something about that. And so I want to let the reading guide us instead of me guiding the reading, because I want to have fun with it. Like, I told my guys, I'm on strike. Anything that is like serious, like, because I'm in a serious part of the country during a serious ordeal, in a neighborhood affected by the seriousness. So like every time I stick my head into serious, like I get like some serious, and so I'm gonna like soothe my soul. And she offers the sacred wine, so drink, and we're just gonna have a party. And with this passion for purpose, I like the feeling here. Hold on. Passion for purpose, having fun. All right, let's get fun. I'm just trying to connect with my main guide here that I've been working with lately. Two of Cups, like very like this. It's Uranus, but the way that I hear this come through, because everything with me is symbol, and it's a weird sound issue. It's sound, but it's not in the same way. It's like Ouranos, and I think there's a Greek version that sounds very similar to how I kind of hear it, Ouranos. And we're in the Capricorn full moon, so we've got like Saturn sort of energy. It's a weird astrological vibe if I stick my head all the way up. But she offers the sacred wine, so drink, and passion for a purpose, and the Hermit. I feel like we're getting cold out. Like this is kind of like, you know, that Hermit phase and that Hermit place is pretty like, I think that's like the zeitgeist of what it means to be on the roller coaster that we're kind of on, is that a lot of people are, even if they're like out and about, there's still this like weird cloistering, especially with energy and with passion for purpose. And she offers the sacred wine, so drink. This is a party, this is passion, this is like wine, and Hermit is like almost kind of like an opposite energy. So the bottom of deck energy is like there's a little bit of a tug of war. This is interesting. Let's see where it leads us. Let's get some cards out. Hello, darkness. I'm getting songs. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Unfinished business. Okay, unfinished business. So that's coming back as something that's important. So there's something here where there's something beautiful offered. Let me just take a look. I can get into all of this in just a moment. This is a song, like this, the energy is like lifting me with songs. So I'm getting like a lot of song. Belief and authority with perception. All right, we're gonna spend some time getting some cards on the table. Do I want to do this fast, or do I want to do this with you sitting here with me? I'm gonna be a little bit slow about what I'm seeing. This is the opposite feeling. I feel these things are two opposite feelings. And so when we come to this notion of belief, I almost feel we're at this point, and we might be at this point like conditionally as like a species in the moment of time, but belief, struggling with belief. What does belief actually mean? Does belief mean I bought it and now I have it? Because, you know, or does belief, like what is belief? Like what even is it, right? We know that the power of belief is undeniable. Belief is permission. The placebo pill, you see healing by way of belief. We also see the opposite, where like doubt and fear can like bring another sort of thing into orbit and have us kind of locked in at another angle. there's a way of being impervious to the projections of others, and it doesn't matter what they're doing because you're in a good place with you. And so like that belief in self, that belief in purpose, that belief in a better plan, the belief in God's, the belief is at play here, real strong. And a lot of people, the hermit is guided by belief, guided by intuition, and going kind of the opposite way of the crowd, and listening to something other than the instructions that are happening externally. And so this passion for the purpose and the hermit, it's like there's something here at the depths in this voice, in this truth that is worthy of your belief. And it is what is on offer, as opposed to what all of the noise around you might be in terms of what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? That higher perception. We've got perception and authority and perception here too. So when we talk about what life has on offer for you and what life has on offer, I'm almost looking like that at this as like there's a manifestation, like where manifestation works, manifestation techniques that are effective, lucky girl something. What life has on offer has a lot to do with what you see available to you on offer. And so that is perception based. And so we have a lot of power when it comes to like driving perception and driving how we perceive things. We have a lot of power, but sometimes there's cause for like belief when there's cause for belief, it's because something has to join our perspective and expand it. We're not there. We don't believe it yet. The perspective is like fixed, and we need belief. Belief is some extra component external to perception to bring into perception, to alchemize a new like passion, a new purpose, a new way in which there is movement. Because when we get locked in, there's something about that authority there being like, when we get locked into a fixed position or a kind of pattern or a sort of extraction, and defensiveness. I just picked up on that when I looked at the authority. I was like, oh, who are you? I'm like, okay. But like even defensiveness, like if we are and I'm going to come back to Hannah made this really good remark about like humans are like tofu and whatever soup that we are in, like it like you take on the flavor of the soup. When you're in a party where everybody is like, it has an attitude, you're like, this is disgusting. So like there's something to be said for being influenced, or like having that like the soup and become who you are. And the power that we have, like when we take back our power, it's by way of perception and sort of like being able to filter out that stuff and move in with a belief and an internal life, like not outsourcing our internal life. So an internal life in relationship to belief that is able to inspire this passion. And the only way that that can happen is if there's a perspective shift about what is on offer. Because there's something about this authority that like I almost feel like it's a bad soup, like it's a bad soup. And so the perception of the bad soup versus the perception shift of what's much more likely like the truth of who you are and what you're capable of and what's available to you. And so let's take a look and see what our guides want to bring through with this. Firepower, turning to stone. Where is my fire? I hear like a song, like someone's calling fire, like fire. Let's see. Firepower, turning to stone, and conflict. Yeah, authority. It was like, it just felt confrontational. And then with the taking a stand, again, what is that? What is that? So it's funny because I had a reading this week. It was a personal, and I don't share personal stuff, but there are themes that are coming up over and over again that I think it's like worth speaking to. And there's like a bitterness, like there's a bitter taste, and I think I've been participating in it. I'm like, nobody is not the tofu that is picking up on the soup, whether it's like in your house, around friends, or just like in general by like looking at the world, like and thinking there's no hope, or like this is just the bad guys like have all the power. That's actually that does function as a belief. believe it or not. When we think about the narrative wars that we're subject to, when we think about the influencing that is happening on a constant basis, like all of the information that is, put it this way, if you are outsourcing your inner life, do you know what I'm talking about when I say outsourcing your inner life? If you are outsourcing your inner life to other voices, you're not developing an ability to hear yourself. And so when that happens, you're being influenced or you're being indoctrinated one way or another. Your own inner voice and your own inner inquiry and your own inner leanings and your own inner direction should be coming from a rich inner world, a richly developed inner world. And you bring that richly developed inner world into the outer world with you. But when we are constantly like looking at our devices and flipping and through, like, and again, like I'm on social media, but if we are like outsourcing that inner life, if we're not doing the quiet, if we're not doing the reading, if we're not doing the meditation, if we're not doing the conversations, and we're just outsourcing that inner life and that inner experience, then we shouldn't wonder why our belief isn't functioning. Because there's the belief at the level of like, I agree with this, I agree with that, I agree with that. I have a perception based on all of these things that I'm picking up and I'm bringing into my awareness, and now I am adopting them, and they're going to like be the thing that like plays in my head when that phone is off. And so it's like when we outsource that inner life, because I'm seeing this as being significant, and I do this, so I'm listening to myself. I'm like, oh, like I do this, right? Not all the time, but like I've been, I know what this is to get into the habit of escaping myself, even in like healing patterns of finding the answer, finding the solution, finding the practice, and it's almost like feeling like you are investing in something that is not paying off. But part of that is, what is the investment? What is the nature of that investment? What is that belief built on? Because belief is operational at the level of placebo, in relationship to how much it comes from you, and not something that you are just stamping like, yes, I agree. Because there's depth to belief when it comes from you, when it comes from something that you have a relationship to, that isn't just the right answer on a test. And I know that sounds like trite, but I think I've been feeling this a lot. I'm seeing this, the collective information is there, but I'm seeing this in terms of like, how do you explain this on like a personal level? When you read the back of the book, agree with it, but don't bother to read the book. You come to that belief by way of a emotional resonance, but the experience of reading the book is like there's an integration that it becomes you, and there's something there. And so with perception and authority, like I think that there's something about like the depth of a belief, not just the adoption of a belief, but the depth of the belief. And what does it mean to like work with that? Because there's something here about turning to stone. And I think turning to stone is like a lot of how people are reacting to the shocks of Uranus, in Gemini. That's a conflict. For a lot of people, that's a conflict. And so when we think about passion for purpose, there's, I hear a lot of people who have like a lot of good ideas being like, here's the list of my good ideas. But then there's no passion behind it. There's no depth to the belief. You can believe it's a good idea. Ooh, I just felt like my body just did a little. You can look at like, the belief is interesting here, because when you think about like your ideas, the things that you want to do, say you want to paint a picture, or you want to walk every day. There's something here about the depth and the conviction and the authority of the belief that you hold about the life that you want to have and the person you want to be. That has to take time to root, and that takes effort to root, and that takes contemplation to root. It takes prayer to root, and it takes the experience of like yourself and developing that rich inner life. Because turning to stone is when you're eating at like a surface or something. I gotta get more clarity with this. And a little bit of water, because taking a stand is like, we've got conflict, we've got taking a stand, we've got authority. These are all reckoning kind of cards, and we have turning to stone. Let's look a little closer. Let's look a little closer. Let's look a little closer. She offers the sacred wine, so drink. Higher perception. Passion for a purpose and firepower. Yeah, there's something here about the fire. The Hermit card and the Stone card are feeling very similar to me in this like old, tired, like it's like a haggard kind of energy. And the Stone is the heart that is saying like, I'm not gonna let you in. I'm not gonna, you know, it's defensive. And the same thing with like taking a stand, that's a defensive posture. And so when we think about this conflict here, you know, there's a really big difference between this defensive posture, this conflict with whatever is, I gotta get some more cards. Let me just get some cards. I wanna see this closer. Belief is the opposite of turning to stone. Belief is allowing. Belief is giving way. Turning to stone and belief are like the absolute opposite energy. So here we have this conflict at the level of the Hermit. So it's like, what is guiding you? And how secure and rooted, and like how much, like the gravity, how much of that gravity is there? And so, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Bottom of the deck, we have the 9 of Coins. And we have the Empress here. You can't outsource your inner life. Like, there's just no way. Because this 10 of like, this is the 10 of Wands. This is collecting stuff. Collecting stuff. You have to integrate, I'm seeing this as being like, look at the zygote here and all of this energy coming out at this little growing energy, this little growing seed. Here's this little growing seed, and this little growing seed wants to know itself. And this little growing seed is contemplating all of the symbols. And there are all of these external influences. And the only thing that the little seed has to do is to take in the influence that it wants to learn from and translate that information, and then use that information to create a perception, to create a perception. So that creating a perception is the driver's seat. That's the steering wheel. This is that 9 of Coins. The 10 of Wands here. Look at all of these little gremlins. All these little gremlins. These are little thought forms. Baby little thought forms that play. The loops that play. The stories that play around and around and around. What is the story in your head telling you? What is the story in your head telling you? Is it telling you a story about a way that somebody else thinks about you? Because you don't know how somebody else thinks about you, and you're never going to know that. So that's always going to be fiction no matter what. Even if you think you have a whole Nancy Drew ensemble, like this is a freeing, like positive thing. Even if you think you have a Nancy Drew ensemble of clues telling you that like this person's action concerns your, like translates to like this experience of your fear that you're having about them. We all do this. It's called theory of mind. It's something that developed, you know, in the Ice Ages. When we read somebody's expression, we're just, you know, figuring out what they think and feel. But in a world where there's so much fracturing, you know, everything that we're taking in by the way of information to make up our identity, how we see ourselves in the world, what it means for us to feel like grounded in our sense of our own inner world. When you walk around and your inner world is the center of gravity, and you feel secure. When that is, when we don't have an inner world, when we are outsourcing our inner world, we have like a vibrating, almost anxiety. And so that's like these thoughts, they come in at the surface level, not from experience, but by way of adoption. So influences that are probably true about like what's happening in other places, and like how that should translate to your day-to-day experience, what's happening with other people and other people who are similar to you, and how that informs your sense of what you're feeling about the things that you're feeling, what other people have in the way of art or philosophy or theology or spirituality that is a shared like experience of like sharing what gods are and what spirituality is, and how that is useful and beneficial by way of developing systems for belief, technologies of faith, everything that you use as tools to kind of like piece yourself together in terms of identity. We all have ways of interacting with the outside world and bringing things into ourselves and then expressing those things in unique ways. But where the expressing those things in unique ways and being able to feel like solid in our beliefs, being able to feel like our beliefs hold, that they hold water, that they're a container, is when those beliefs are in action, when we are experiencing, when we are creating with a belief about purpose. And like, that's hard, right? Because I see this as being, you know, where the influences are the only reason that the stuff is there. Instead of the influences being part of the ingredients of the experience of an inner world that is carefully constructed, carefully curated, careful and deeply understood. And then the language that inner world is given and creates with, that is translating into something new and something novel after deep introspective transformation. And like, this information can come from anywhere, right? Reading a book and like writing a paper about it and talking about it in class is going to give you an experience of that material that you work with it outside of yourself. But when you take it in, it has to be translated. And so like that process of like rooting in belief also spends time, like also like necessitates spending time with contemplation, with consideration. It's not information gathering. Information gathering is very different than information processing. And so this is where we see like this, I feel like this is a zygote, like with lots of like ideas and genius and coping with like really difficult circumstances, because there is something here about processing your pain, not just diagnostically. Like I almost feel like I do this, where it's diagnosing the external environment, sickness, like, you know, pollution, and how it's affecting the internal environments, like asthma. Yes, these things are absolutely related, you know, and also how the internal system is breaking under stressors and strains and like resource limitations, and like how that's informing the experience of what is available or not available in the external world. There's a lot here that goes on in terms of like what is influencing and creating our belief and curating our belief, and like how strong that belief is, how effective that belief is in relationship to how much we are integrating it at the level of having our inner world be something that we invest in. Because there's a lot of outsourcing our inner worlds going on all over the place. And so this Empress is about your creative capacity, that endless fount. Like there is no cap on what you're able to create. The spiritual aspect of that is that creation, like the stuff that you create, that's coming from you. Because again, that belief, you know, it's like, what are you creating? Well, you create from what you believe in. You don't create with necessarily what you agree with. You create from what you believe in, because creativity is like expressing divine aspects within yourself. It's the wine. She offers a sacred wine, so drink. That wine doesn't happen like by snapping your fingers and wanting it to be there. Like, I want that, me, like, and then you have wine. The quality of what is on offer in the way of like when the divine aspect of God, goddess, same, is guiding you through your imagination and your intuition and your desire. I want to have this kind of life and be this kind of person, and I don't know how to get there, and I have to start by dreaming of possibilities and avenues, and in prayer and contemplation, that inner world, listening to that inner space that says, I want a quiet, like nature, you know, there's something that happens when we let ourselves dream, when we allow ourselves to like dig into dreaming. And that's an investment in belief and possibility, because we can foreclose the belief on anything with a practical, cold, hermity, because I feel like this conflict and this turning to stone. Well, I can't be creative because I see a landscape and I want to paint it, but then when I do with my paintbrush, it looks like that. You know, like that's something that happens to everybody. It's part of the creative process. It's literally part of the curve and part of that integration. So what is that integration in that rich inner world? That rich inner world happens when you try to translate the landscape to a piece of paper with watercolors and it's like a disappointment. And you're like, I'm not a painter, I have to give up. No, you look at that translation, you see the distance between like what you want and where it is, and you start to dream. And you dream of other people who have painted landscapes, and you dream of Bob Ross, and you dream of the Bob Ross kit. And then you dream of, like, you know, not even about consumerism or capitalism, but it comes from this understanding that integration process is learning that skill like deeply. And that learning that skill deeply is why it feels good. And that whole process is the nourishment. And so there's something here about belief, and the belief in yourself, and the belief in your own capabilities, and the belief of the world to provide for you, because what you have to offer is sacred. And it's nourishing, and it's related to your passion and your purpose. And I see with the Hermit and the conflict and the turning to stone, and like, you know, the fire under passion it's hard to light almost. And so taking a stand, I want to look at this a little bit, because the Empress is, again, there is no lack. There's no actual lack. You know, I have been having a hard time like channeling, because every time I stick my head out, and like, you know, as like a psychic that is literally like doing the shit, like I'm gonna feel everything, and it's gonna make me angry, and it's gonna make me upset, and it's gonna make me, but that is the wrong answer every single time. That is the wrong answer, because the practice of belief is saying, I know what it looks like, but I believe it can be something different. I know what it looks like, but I believe that there's another opportunity, or another avenue, or there's another intervention, or there's another something. That belief is another option. If you only have one way to look at things and there's no other way, you're in prison. If you have more, and Eddie can speak to this because she's been noticing this like pattern actually. If there's, and probably speak to this better than I can. But anyway, if there's more than one thing, it's almost like, you know, you have like, there's no reason for you to marry a timeline. And there's no reason for you to think that your timeline isn't influenced by your decisions and your desires. In fact, I think it's a mistake to think that your timeline is influenced by anything other than your decisions and your desires. And when you recognize that that's what makes the difference, it's important to have beliefs about things. And those beliefs about things have to come from an integrated, well, like inner world cultivated gravity kind of a place, not a list of things that you see about yourself and want to like be clear about, like because we want to have more than just whatever is developed here. There's a lot of influences, right? There's a lot of potential, but this is an energy that is closed in on itself, unable to leave its prison. With the Hermit is looking in for their way out. They don't have another map, and that's understandable, you know. But at a certain point, the Hermit has to have an understanding of what is around them in order to express themselves. And in understanding what is around them, like there has to be something about these influences that isn't making that like energy, that little seed that wants to sprout, like curl in on itself like that. And so this turning to stone, that curling in on yourself, and that conflict, there's something about belief that is so tainted here around like authority and perception, because I want to look at it. Let's find out. Let's see what it is. There's an aspect of participating, because I really do see all of these little gremlins as these little stories and these little thought forms that they play on these loops, and they're like the fears, the lack, the overwhelm. And it's not that we can't like look at our fears, like we live in a crazy time and we're crazy enough to look at our fears and at least like assess and make note of, but to carry them on our back every day and every hour as like we've been influenced and now we believe. And it's not that it's untrue, it's that what use is it to you if it's crushing you? And that can be anything. And it's okay, you know, it's okay to step back and say, you know what, I have to integrate some of this stuff, you know, like I have to be able to process some of what I heard today. And like, you know, when we are like flipping through and we're adopting belief after belief after belief, but that belief has no time to sink. It has no time to root. It has no time to be integrated into a rich inner life. A new worldview comes with a rich inner view, a new worldview within. That's carefully cultivated, not stockpiled. Because I feel like this is a stockpiling of identity markers. And some of these go all the way to the root. But some of these are like carrying something that's, you're carrying the karma of others. You're carrying the battles of other people in some senses. And there's a need to do that, but only in a way that makes sense to your own purpose and your own life mission. Sometimes we adopt the dreams of other people and we travel with those dreams for a long time and we forget what it is to dream ourselves. In fact, that happens a lot. We absorb the desires of others all the time and lose ourselves. And then that's when all the resentment comes in. And so it's so easy to do that because we're porous, right? But what it means to take the stand here with taking a stand and that 9 of coins, and that's your value. And that Empress, your value is in what is it that you create so abundantly that you don't get tired. And everybody's going to get tired, and we're all living in a famine, and it's exhausting. But like the Empress is like, she's fertile. She doesn't even know she's pregnant when something's growing in her tummy for a really long time. And then when it's there, she knows that it's going to turn into new life, and she knows that there's going to be labor involved, and she has to sit for like 9 months with what's going on. And that's like, that is a rich inner world that is not, it's an automatic function of her growth is the growth of that which is growing within her. And so that the relationship with what's happening there and the nourishing of the body and the dreaming and the preparing and the nesting, there's something that happens to pregnant women. They actively nest, they clean, they organize, they actively nest, they actively build into the belief of new life, the belief of possibilities, the belief of what is being born through them that is going to give them entire dimensions of experience and relating, that it is assured that things are not going to stay the same, that there is risk involved, does not drown out and turn to stone, that there is also something growing. And so when we have belief here and we have like this conflict with belief, the conflict with belief is weird. I gotta say, the conflict with belief is weird because you come to your beliefs by way of coherence and agreement. And if they don't serve you in your life, if they are not functionally, tactically, like if you are having a belief that is not translating into greater maturity, greater like capacity, more like inspired creativity, not, creativity that is just sort of skimmed off the top, but like deeply inspired because something has changed you, like that kind of stuff. A song has given you like something that like is taking you into a place of dreaming, like the ways in which things like transform you. That's like a rich inner world. It's like there's a call to reconnect to that so powerfully. And so there's this conflict with belief that says, it's not working, things aren't working, so I must have adopted the wrong belief. So if a belief is not functional for you, at the level of adoption, it's because you don't believe it. You don't actually believe it. You agree. You've taken note. You've checked off the box. But for some reason, it's not really a belief. Because a belief does its own thing. A belief doesn't have to be propped up. It exists because there has been careful consideration. Think about the beliefs that you have that are unshakable. Because those beliefs didn't come to you overnight. And there are beliefs in you that are unshakable that need to be upended. Beliefs in your own limitations. Beliefs in your own like options or lack thereof. There's some really, really deep beliefs that have to do with like stuff that the mystic. Oh my God, my stomach is doing something right now. Like the body always does a thing when the channel gets like really strong, and this is a burpy one. But let's talk about the body. Let's talk about the limitations of the body. With the mystic revels in intimate union with the divine. When we look at what happens to our life and the conditions around our life, and those conditions and what happens to our life leave us feeling powerless and unloved by the universe, it's a failure. It's a failure of imagination. And I know that sounds fucked up, right? But listen, think about it, because it's true. If you are looking at all of the circumstances stacked against you and thinking that there is nothing but a living death, that may be true if you are like looking to the authority of whatever, like, because it's again that rich inner life tells one story, and that rooted inner life and that spirituality and belief, okay, those spiritual beliefs, those deep rooted spiritual beliefs, and the connections to the divine that we have, and the other worlds that we're a part of, and the knowledge that this, even though it's a Christian phrase, it's a very true one, the knowledge that this is not your home, that you are just passing through for an experience. Like, all of those beliefs should provide a peace. That this is not all there is should provide a peace. That what you have before you and that what you've been given carries a world of discoveries. That even if you are sitting in one place, you are possessed of such a mind and such a creative capacity and something in the way of an imagination, that an imagination is what our ancestors used to figure out tools. It's not idle, it's not nothing, and it grows up to be intuition, and that intuition is the voice of God every single time. And so when we say failure of imagination at the level of belief, that anywhere you are, in any situation that you are in, applied by imagination and belief, the experience can go from one type of torture into another type of adventure. And I know that because I've done pain management, and again, it's different for everybody, and I know that there are a lot of you that have severe pain that you cope with. But my pain management is often deep, intense prayer, and also allowing myself to move with Mother and to fiercely attend, like by way of like my own, like when I am in deep pain, I kind of like move into this spiritual place where I cry out to the gods and I grab onto them, and then I almost channel them through as like I'm experiencing them, and then I'm experiencing them experience me in my pain, and I'm experiencing my pain through their perspective, and I'm having a very different experience of that pain. And I'm informed at a different level, and that's a rich inner world. And then when I come up from that pain, there's a lot of information, a lot of inspiration, and very strong ties that are created from those prayers. And I consider myself a different person, and I consider myself reborn, and I have the experience of a shaman, like having moved through an initiation, and I don't have the experience of myself as helpless to victimization that will never stop torturing me. And I could look at it either way. I really, truly, honest to God, given my own vantage point, could look at it either way. And so I say that not to sort of impose that belief, which is my belief, on you, but to say that that is how my mysticism has transformed my life. And all that a spiritual practice is sharing the love of the gods. This is my witness. This is the vision that I see and what it ends up being. And you have a version of that. We all have a version of that. And that belief works for you. And the reason that a belief works for a person, the reason my belief works for me, is because I believe it. My belief is not going to work for you. Your belief you have to believe it. You have to believe your own thing. We can take the information from somebody else's belief all day long and outsource our inner life. But we are actually meant to engage with all spiritual material from a place of deep introspection and analysis. And that takes time, and that is something that every individual is responsible for navigating within themselves based on resonance, sensation, and that's knowing yourself. That's being in relationship with yourself. When you're interacting with material that kind of upends you, you have to sort of be in that introspective place. You're forced into a conversation with yourself. You're forced into conversations with others. You like, changes happen as a result of those conversations. Now the world looks different. Does it feel like a roller coaster? Sort of. It's an influx of information analysis, and where it goes to practice is really at that point of belief. And I don't think that anyone's introspection, belief, and practice should look the same. And I think that with the Prince here being like, here's an offer of love, and what is done with that should not be the same. It should not look the same after it moves through your universe. You are a cosmic universe. Everything that enters your cosmic universe, when it has come into contact with your rich inner life and then transformed by your own imagination and your own interpretations, it should be spit out looking like a brand new, different, completely other thing. And in that way it becomes yours, and in that way it's your belief, and in that way it becomes operational. And mysticism is personal that way. And so like this romantic charm and potential for power, you know, that's almost like the advertisement. Yes, I'm going to buy it. But if you buy something, you have to find a way it has to be customized. If you're going to buy a spoon, you're going to use that spoon with your set of utensils, and you know what I mean? Like there's something about like, yeah, my guys are saying no, back it up. Like if you buy a spoon, you're still going to make your own recipes with it. You're not confined to like one type of way of like participating with belief. It's only going to stand. It's only going to do something. It's only going to become effective if it is translated into something new. There has to be an alchemical process there. And that doesn't mean that you have to come up with things and you don't know. It just means that rich inner life can't be outsourced. And there's so many demands on our attention that we can really get mad at the demands on our attention instead of getting like into this notion of like, wait a minute, what is a deep inner life? We used to not have cell phones. And I'm not saying that we go back in time, but I am saying that the amount of time that people used to have to sit in their own company with nothing more than, at best, music, that was the development of, hopefully, rich inner lives. A lot of people did not get that because of poverty. A lot of people have their inner lives stripped from them because they have to work so much, and they have to take care for others so much, and they have to do so much for others that they don't have any time to think. That is when your inner life, that turning to stone, is like, that's that neglect at the level of the inner life. Outsourcing that inner life is why we feel scared all the time. Because that conviction and that belief keeps us fed, it keeps us nourished, it keeps us like feeling, that's where confidence comes from. Confidence comes from being sure about stuff. Being sure about stuff comes from when things are challenged and we really think about it and we end up with like the thing that we believe. Like there's always some level of conflict there. And if we turn to stone at like, I don't know what to believe, I did this and I did that and my outcome was this other thing, I get it, you know, but that has nothing, like the stuff that you adopt in the way of belief and like, I see like alliances, allying with different beliefs. It's not the same as taking like a form of ownership that only comes from digesting and that belief becomes something completely new in every individual. It becomes something new. And then it becomes your creative compass. And when I say it becomes something new, you can take like Christianity and believe it all 100%. It's still going to become something new in each individual that expresses it. So that's the nature of belief, is that it's never going to bake the same cake. Now, we're taught with like scriptures, we're taught with like forms of belief that are story-based, and you're right or you're wrong. You found the right belief or the wrong belief. And when we look at our lives and we're like, nothing's working because I have the wrong belief, it's never that. You know, any belief will do. It's going to come out different in every person. Every belief is like an ingredient, and a different cake comes out with every person when they start to like operate in these things. And finding what's going to work for you is not about adopting the right story. It's about a rich inner life that gives you that connection to your gnosis. It's about that rich prayer world and that openness to, whether you consider it your imagination or your intuition, it's the same thing. Allowing for for those insights of your journaling to show you who you are and what you create. And we can really outsource that inner life. I have to say, like, ChatGTP can be outsourcing that inner life because it calls you out and it's prompting you as much as you're prompting it. And we want that. That's a conversation. But when it comes to the judge and what we take on as a belief and what we move with as a belief, here's the only difference between a conversation with ChatGTP and a conversation with a person. A conversation with ChatGTP is not at the level, it's at the level of mental exchange, and it's almost like at the level of a game. It can get deep because it's working with the material of your depth. It's mirroring back your own depth. But at the end of the day, that exchange it's like the difference between an inner, like a rich inner life that is that you adopt a position based on like thinking something out, writing something out, reading something, deep introspection, a knowing of yourself and your beliefs and what you hold to be true. Like in a conversation, that conversation is going to challenge those beliefs. Those conversations with people are going to bring out like aspects of things that you didn't see, similar to how ChatGTP will, but it's going to give you roots because things have been tested. There's a testing ground in interaction. There's not a testing ground in positive regard with ChatGTP or a therapist. So if the only feedback you're getting is with ChatGTP or a therapist, those beliefs don't develop muscle because of testing. And if you keep yourself away from anybody who disagrees with you, those beliefs aren't developing muscle. That doesn't mean you have to argue and debate. It means you have to think about what you beliefs are when you're confronted by somebody else's beliefs. You have to engage with whether or not you agree when you are in relationship to another version of somebody's belief. And in the process of engaging with whether or not you agree or disagree, you come to know yourself. But when we just adopt what feels good at a surface level because it's being mirrored, because like ChatGPT is going to mirror what you are back to you. An algorithm is going to mirror what you are back to you. A therapist is going to mirror what you are back to you with slight little pieces of information that is new. It is not going to give you develops. It is not going to give you develops. It is not going to give you belief that develops into like the kind of muscle that allows you to walk into a space with a confidence that says, I know who I am and I have a sense of what it means for me to be here. And I have that trust in myself that knows that I know how to respond correctly to these various situations that I might find myself in. I come to this job every day. I know the road. I drive it every day. It becomes something that is automatic. I see that person every day. Dealing with them becomes something that is automatic. I interact with this concept regularly and like what it means. Like there's something there about this judge here and like becoming rigid and becoming stone because there's something fragile. And with the siren here being like a call into relationships, a call like being addicted to certainty and being addicted to comfort, everybody's going through some version of that because we're all kind of like shell-shocked from pandemic and like the way that communication is changing. Being able to communicate with AI and having that mirroring, being able to have the mirroring of algorithms and like kind of these echo chambers taking on almost this again, outsourcing your internal life. Outsourcing your internal life. Remember, like I'm being shown high school and there's like everybody is a jock and a prep and like 3 kids are alternative. And there's this like constant tension between like the vantage points and the perspectives. But that interaction builds the lifestyle and the convictions and the showing up and the muscle around being proud and happy to be the difference in the room. It's experiential and at first it's confrontational, but it becomes a strength. And the same can be said with belief. Like at first it's confrontational, but whatever's going to work for you, it's because it has kind of like brushed up against whether you agree or disagree. And it's not just agree or disagree. Like what is going on in the internal, like what's happening in the inner world. Where is this in relationship to your reality testing? Where is it not? And so that siren is like, this is going to be the call of everything interesting, every good song, like every hope, every opportunity, every dream. Like the belief, it's sticky. I kind of feel the stickiness because it's like there's nothing, because that taking a stand. On the bottom of the deck, we have the Empress. There is no end to the creative capacity that you are born with in the way of being able to have inspiration and act on it. If there's no inspiration and there's no sense of how to act, that's like the creative compass is off. it's the same thing in conversation, like wanting to have a conversation but not knowing how to introduce yourself. Like that, in that sense, the creative compass is off. Wanting a type of project and like not knowing how to get from the dream to the place that you're going with the project. There's a whole process involved, a skill building involved that requires trial and error. That is going to be like reinforcing belief and changing belief and on all of those roots. And that's all confidence, and that's center of gravity, and that's knowing the self. And so like I say that here because I feel with this perception and the passion for purpose and the fire and the higher perception, I mean, it's coming out twice. And the authority, like you're talking about, like your inner authority, your center of gravity. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to apologize for existing. You don't have to find the right environment in order to express. You have a right to take up space. You have a right to your voice. You have a right to everything that is yours, and ways of protecting it, and ways of caring about yourself. Like there's all sorts of stuff here with fire and turning to stone and conflict and taking a stand that says that like there is a call to stand up for yourself in one way or another. There's a call to stand up for yourself. There's a call to show up for yourself. There's a call to reignite that fire. Like, what is this anger all about? What is it telling you about what things are fair and are not fair? What is it telling you about what is or is not happening? And what does it mean for you to look that in the face, and not crumble under it? Because again, like this is where belief is so important, because you could look out on the landscape of everybody and say, like, every single person I know is X, Y, and I heard Z, X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. Every person I know is, these diagnosing, these judging, this judgment, turning to stone. You don't know other people. You only have a fiction on everyone. You have a very small frame on who somebody else is, what their agenda is, what they're doing, where they're coming from, and what it is that, there's more distance from what it means to understand someone than there ever has been before. You understand yourself, and in understanding yourself, you have a sense of other people, because sometimes they mirror similar things back to you. But the only person that you know and understand is going to be you. If you are a person that knows and understands everybody else, but and like having a hard time being known and understood, there's almost that has a lot to do with like externalizing your internal world, getting a sense of who you are on the inside by how you see people treat you. It makes a weird kind of sense that would be how it is, but then you have to bring belief in it and say, how people treat me is not who I am, because I have a rich inner world and I know what I am worth and what my value is. And if people don't treat me how I estimate myself, then they're not seeing my value. And that doesn't mean that they are terrible, horrible, and no good. It means that they have a small frame to look at me through, and that what they have to offer in the way of generosity through that frame is going to be a fiction, even if it's praise. And that praise is good, but it's still a mirror that only shows you like something that either reinforces your belief about yourself, challenges you to make changes so that you're believing differently, or changes the belief in yourself. Like, it's always going to be interacting with belief, but it's always has to be integrated at the level of a deep inner life, where what informs who you are is your sense of yourself, and not anyone else's sense of you. And not what informs what is available to you in terms of your options. That comes from your rich inner life. Your rich inner life tells you what's available to you. The job market doesn't. There's an interplay, but creativity is the bridge between the two. The economy is foreclosing, everybody's doomed. Your rich inner life is going to be an obsession with this fantasy world that you can't stop seeing, and then you start to sketch it, and then in sketching it and in prayer you get an idea, and then you're in a conversation, and then that conversation leads to an opportunity, and that opportunity is related to the idea that you had while you were sketching. Like, this is how the gods move into your life and make change and do things. It's and it's at the level of belief that you leave the house with the sketch. that someone might like, and that's really doing it an injustice. That's really doing an injustice, because I can't even get close to what it means to have the power to construct yourself by way of belief, and know that that power is your superpower. What we get tricked into is adopting other people's beliefs that don't root, and we don't really believe them, we just agree with them. And so when the wind comes, we are knocked over because there's nothing but an agreement instead of an actual belief that we've taken time to like integrate and work with. And like all of the beliefs have to bounce off our individual experiences and then be translated through our individual perspectives. And the translation of what we individually decide on how we are experiencing ourselves and the spirit realms and the beliefs as they interact with that whole process. Again, like it can feel like you're lost at sea without a rudder, but that's only because you're doing the work of that deep, introspective, prayerful translation. And coming into that place of mysticism around what your intuition is informing about your experience. And it's not about finding something that to agree with that's going to be right, that's going to protect you. It's a different process altogether. And so like, this is important, because like, I'm struggling with this also, where I like look at the world and I'm like, it looks like that. But then my guides are like, but you are this, and then and then I have to work with what it means to stand up for myself. And I think we all have to stand up for ourselves when it comes to looking at our life and saying, these things aren't working, what do I do? There's courage involved in saying, what do I believe? What do I believe about myself? What do I believe about the life I want to have? What can I do with my imagination to create a bridge between where I am and where I'm going? And how can that, and I say imagination because a lot of people don't have developed intuition. Imagination turns into developed intuition when it matures. And when we don't have access to our intuition, we don't have access to that inner world and that inner connection, we have to start with imagination. And so where is your imagination like leading you? What is it telling you? Like, what is it telling you about the information that you're bringing in? Like, what is that integration process about? And so it's like, there's a lot of work and there's conflict in some of that too, but the character building that happens when you allow for the conflict, and then you take that conflict and you work in terms of like grounding your beliefs or rooting your beliefs. Do I believe this? Yes or no? Is it working? Yes or no? Why or why not? Like, what do I have to do to create this into something that will work for me? What belief do I have to take on that is going to work for me so that I can do the things that I do feeling like there is spiritual assistance? Some people like need it to be science because they can't complicate things and they don't want to, and they need it to stay real simple. And so they want it to operate in certain parameters with certain rules, and anything that comes in and out of those rules gets like, there's a cognitive, bias to like dismiss anything outside of that, because it keeps it simple. It keeps things manageable, and that's their preference and that works for them. Other people have a panoramic experience that they're working with, and it's how they translate meaning, and it's like, it's practically an art form at that point. The channeling is it brings through like that's a whole different lifestyle. It's a whole different experience. And so if you're trying to fit a lifestyle and experience on an underdeveloped sense of self, there's like a lopsided things that can happen in terms of feeling like you're equipped. And everybody goes through this, right? And so like this stuff about vision and identity and hope, we're so invited to not have a conflict with like every belief of mine. Is it yes or no? Is it true or false? But to step into this like play where we're looking at all these beliefs, all of the world is an unfair place. Everybody's terrible. It's terrifying. There's no hope. Like, it's just agony. And like, this is terrible, right? Now, all of these beliefs we've collected, and we've said like, I saw all these things are true, and now they travel with me. And I'm crawled up like a ball because I've just taken on like the stories and the karma of like, and even the desires of other people. Like, I want to, people want me to be there in this way, and I'm going to show up and I'm not going to show up. Like, boundaries, like, this is a little seed that is like all curled up, and all these people are like wanting to influence. All these energies are wanting to influence. All of these stories are wanting to influence, and carrying all of these stories and all of these things and all these desires. Like, here's where we take a stand and we unlock our power. Here's where we take a stand and we unlock our power. We don't sit with manipulation, trying to figure out, the manipulation card here, trying to figure out how we're going to get anything at all, and who's going to show up, and who's going to be there for us in the time. That stuff is, the judge can be really harsh, And so when we have these heaviness of the weight of the world, and we're curled up on what it means to even receive inspiration or hope, because belief isn't working, or it is working, the approach that has to be taken is a different relationship with belief. A relationship with belief that isn't like yes or no, adopt or buy it or sell it, but a relationship with belief that is somehow falling in love. And I can feel my throat chakra kind of closing, because that siren is going to be the things in life that call to you, that inspire you, that you want to be a part of. People who you want in your life are not, it's not about acquisition. It's about qualities that you don't want to adopt at the level of the surface where you're just mimicking or anything like that. You want to see something, think about it, think about how it relates to you. Think about what your role in this is. Think about what place you want with something like this. Think about what it means and doesn't mean. Think about what a practice of it looks like. Think about whether or not, if it's not yours, like you have to transform it. It has to be retrofitted to you. You have to build your own container for your own faith. You can't constantly be looking to like adopt it from other places. When we share faith, we bear witness to our faith, and then we build our faith and we inspire each other's faith. That's not adopting faith. And I feel so choked up. I don't know why. Oh, my lungs too. There's not, it's like this lack of air, like when it comes to participating with belief, we need belief that works at the level of our own perception. And then sharing that perception with others is not about convincing people of our belief and adopting a belief. It's about cultivating our own beliefs, using like the inspiration, but then ending up with a belief that is very uniquely something that is created. So the siren call, I want to believe. The belief, I agree with that. Then we have the moment of like, do I adopt this belief for myself? Yes or no? Now we have deep introspection. We have books that we read. We have journal writings that we write. We decide whether or not we're going to adopt it. And when that adoption happens, it can't be without the transformation of your own creative compass. You got to disagree with some of it, because not everything is for, like, not everything is for everyone. It's not one size fits all. You have to look at where it resonates because it makes sense, where it feels like it's your job to care about that or not. Sometimes things can be so true, but you're not retrofitted in your purpose to care about it, because you have to be focused on what you're meant to care about. And so what's really important to somebody else is probably not really important to you, and might not alchemically fit in with the belief system that you're building. Because we're all invited to create of belief, and that means that you believe it. And you don't just believe it because you adopted it. You believe it because you tried it out and it worked, and it's working. And when belief isn't working for you, it's not been retrofitted to you, and that means you have been adopting it without actually like integrating the parts of it that apply to you and the parts of it that, think about Christianity. There are different types of Christians because there are ways in which people have interacted with that story and said, I adopt this, I reject that, and I'm going to make this my own. And then they had a whole new thing, and that's how all of the different religions, Quaker, Protestant, Catholic, non-denominational, evangelical, like I'm using that as an example because it's like most people can kind of understand. But when we're out here in the Wild West of creating your own belief, and through creativity and practices that like are inspired by other people's bearing witness to their spiritual beliefs, which is everything that spirituality is. You're hearing other people bear witness to their belief, and then you're retrofitting your own belief. And if it's not working, then it's not It's not, you have outs. If it's not working, if your belief doesn't work for you, the placebo pill works because of belief, it's not working for you, then there is an aspect of, and we all do this, even I figured out that I did this and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this, where we have in one way or another outsourced our inner life. And that can happen with people pleasing right off the bat. That's the easiest, most accessible one. Our inner life and our inner comfort. I'm comfortable, or I am uncomfortable. I want to do this, or I don't want to do this. That's going to be very like, you know, straightforward information. But when we're trying to please somebody, that inner world is now, are they pleased or are they not pleased? What's the barometer on what they're feeling? What are they feeling? Am I matching that feeling? Are we in this feeling together? Are we in different feelings? Do we have to match feelings? Now we're outsourcing our inner experience to have to involve external validation or external participation or external belief. That deep inner world, I stand here, you stand there, and we may be in different places, but I don't have to debate. I don't have to feel like I'm in one position one day, in a different position another, believing one day, but then I not seeing it another day. Totally 100% exuberant, this is it, and then it doesn't work out and I don't believe anything. That rich inner world is required. And that requires meditation that is silence, meditation that is singing, meditation that is reading, meditation that is conversation, hours of it. Meditation that is journaling. And that leaves like 1 or 2 hours for scrolling. Not 6. And I'm not saying that that's what happens, but I think it happens with a lot of us. A lot of us just have YouTube on in the background. And as a creator, you know, it's like I don't want to encourage you to get off the screen, but I think I'm not the kind of creator that would encourage you to stay on it. Honestly, I think that we all have to spend time with this passion for purpose, have a passion for developing that rich internal world. And so like, I have to pause here because I can feel one of you. And I have to say that like with the Hermit card and the stone, there is such a thing as a rich internal world that is shut down to other people completely and other influences completely. And that's adopting a rigid stance and not allowing for other influences to actually like test those muscles. Those beliefs that are created when you never interact with other beliefs in conversation. You can even be mostly, you don't have to find someone who disagrees with you. You just have to find someone who isn't mirroring. A therapist mirrors. ChatGPT mirrors. People pleasing is a mirroring. And we don't want to critique and we don't want to be hard on each other, but like we want to cultivate the kind of relationships where we are reinforcing our beliefs, not just like I accept it or I reject it, I adopt it or I throw it away. But because, I mean, think about your grandmother's religious beliefs, you know, your great grandmother's rosary, hours on the knees invested in the belief and the practice of the belief, moving the rosaries one from another, repeating over and over and over and again, going into ecstatic trances of prayer. That's why they did it. And they would leave with their belief unshakable because they practiced for 3 hours. If we're practicing for 3 hours, agreeing with everybody speaking about our beliefs and calling that a belief, we're not getting the richness of the experience. And there are those of us who like do the rituals, we do have the inner world, and you can tell. You can tell. And just bringing up the fact that this is how the work is done is not sort of evidence that you don't have the inner world functioning. I have an inner world functioning that I literally, like people consider it that I hallucinate. Like, you know what I mean? Like my inner world, there's a brain left side, right side problem, bleed over. Like, but I still do this. I still accidentally find myself like picking up the soup, operating in other people's fears, operating in other people's projections, operating in other people's hopes, accidentally taking on other people's dreams and forgetting my own. Like even I, who am like seeing visions and hearing, like even I have that experience of like not realizing like whether or not it is my belief or somebody else's belief because I haven't spent time in deep introspective meditation, prayer, ritual. There's not a spiritual belief system and a form of mysticism or a form that does not include a very rich inner life. And that is a lot of time spent by yourself, with your own company. And there are many of us who feel punished by being by ourselves, feel punished by our own company. And I understand that, but because I do that too a lot. I become overwhelmed and I kind of shut myself in because I'm like, I can't deal with outside. I can't deal with people. I don't have the strength. I have, my nervous system has to be like managed like very actively. It's a full-time job. I have to like weigh things. I know that there's a lot of you that are in here that are like that, but there is something to be said for the failure of imagination. I do this to myself around belief. And so when I have a belief that says it's okay that I have to regulate my nervous system for a lot of hours every day, I have to pay attention to this, I have to manage this heavily. It's like, otherwise it's going to be really hard because of the environment that I'm in and the way that I pick things up, the way that I'm like, talk about sensitive, it's ridiculous, right? And so there are those of you that have varying levels of like what you could call disability or lack of disability, but like conditions that mean that you have to live a different kind of life. I have a condition. I'm very sensitive to my environment. I'm very sensitive to everything. Like it's so I have to very carefully make use of my belief. And I have to very carefully like connect with my intuition, and I have to see my limitations as opportunities, because I have to I have to make that bridge by way of belief. This is an opportunity. This is not a limitation. That's a belief thing. And now I can work with what I think that means, and I can kind of suss it out, and I can work with it along the axis of like what I believe that I am value. Where's my value? How does that value manifest? Does it manifest in ways in which I communicate my love? Like, how does it work itself out? Like, we have so many tools. We have so many tools in our toolboxes to make meaning with. We have so many ways in which we can connect to nature, the nature inside of ourselves, the gods inside of ourselves, and have these deep prayerful relationships. Like great grandma who spent 4 hours on her knees with the rosary and was crying and came out shining, literally walking out. Like, I've seen I dated someone whose grandma came out of the room after 4 hours of rosary, and she was glowing, literally from head to toe. And that wasn't because her story was right. It's because she knew how to give way spiritually, because she had practiced it. And now her belief was in her experiences. And sometimes we have experiences, but we don't take time to have a rich inner life and let those beliefs root, and then we can feel out of control. I've had the experience, but I don't have the belief to bolster like what it means, or to even integrate into like what this experience is. And so there's a lot there about the utility of belief, and that we can have spiritual experiences and no belief, and that's scary. We need to have belief with our spiritual experiences. If we don't have a belief, we need to create one. And we have to create one that we have a rich inner life with, because then we can apply it to the pain. We can apply it to the limitations. We can apply it to the challenges. We can apply it to the hypersensitivity and the need to have courage. There are things that I have to do, that I have to go into a huge crowd, and I know that it's going to be overwhelming, and I know that it's going to be like borderline physical painful. And I have to like utilize the power of belief to bring in ritual and to bring in prayer and to sit there holding the rosary, because that's part of what it is for me to get a confidence around how I galvanize my faith into use in situations that challenge me, so that I can build confidence that every challenge that comes my way, I have a faith and I have a method and I have a rich inner life to rely on, so that I can feel confident that I can handle it. And it's work. It's real work. And so with that siren call being about desire, that Prince being about that offer, that she offers the sacred wine, so drink, like this passion for purpose. Like, you have something to offer, and you have something to receive in the way of this passion for purpose. And that means wherever you are sitting, you look out and you think, what is my greatest dream? What is my biggest hope? Does it seem impossible? Don't shut down there. Now you need to use your imagination. What if? Apply what if. What if I had a God that could do this and that and the other? What would it be like to pray? What would it be like to engage with some of this material or that material? And you're going to go and you're going to look and you're going to sample whether it's Buddhism or Christianity or spirituality or divination or polytheism, not polytheism, but this is weird because I've been talking to guides around, I've been talking to our guides about spirituality and sexuality kind of a lot, because I've been saying theism and atheism and whatever, all that to say, I do think that sexuality and spirituality are very similar, because I think that when you express your spirituality properly, it's similar to expressing your sexuality properly. It's because you know yourself. And it's because you kind of work through all the fears around all of the messaging, and you've come to your own sense of yourself. It is very similar, which is why nobody can tell you how to believe. And nobody should ever tell you how to believe. And what you gather from the world about the way that you want to believe and archetypes that are fit you and resonate with you, and you retrofit them. So anyway, this is getting very long as usual. Let's see what the time is. Yeah, I go for a long time. Unlocking your power. There's so much hope here because your power is there to unlock. Your power is in knowing yourself every single time. And all of the ways in which we get to know ourselves, there's lots of information that we can agree with, but it's time spent communicating that information to a journal, communicating that information to a friend, communicating that information through art, and communicating that information through prayer and spirituality. That rich inner life is developed, and that rich inner life is your inspiration. It is your divine genius. It is your access to escape latches. Prayer has always been an escape from pain in one way or another. It doesn't mean that it takes the pain away. It means that that there's a utility there. And so connecting with your passion, it's hard. I'm trying to figure out how to, because it's belief and passion are definitely related. What do you believe? The things that ignite your passion. You believe that everyone should have equal rights because you are passionately in alignment with that message. It ignites your passion because you see when people are treated unfairly, and you're your passion rises up and says, no, you're not going to treat people unfairly. Belief and passion are linked. So our beliefs fail, our passion fails when we just kind of think that we're stuck in an 8 of Swords situation with no way out. And it's something that we judge. And so when we judge that there's always a way out, when we judge that there's always a dream, when we judge that there's always a hope, when we judge that there's always an imagination that we can access. If you think you're never going to have a certain thing because it's not showing up in your life, and you might not have access to it, you can have a dream. You can work with what that dream evokes in you in the way of response. And you can decide whether or not you believe that you want this or you believe that you don't want this. If you really don't want something, then thinking about it shouldn't hurt you. So if you believe that you can't have something, and so you don't think about it, and then you don't think about it, so you believe you don't want it, and now it's repressed. When you do let yourself think about it, when you do sit with it, does grief come up? If grief comes up, then there's something there with belief that you want to think about. What do you believe about what you want? If grief comes up, then that's something to work with in the way of belief. And that's something to work with in the way of knowing yourself. And that's something to work with in finding a technology that is going to work to move you from grief to hope. Because that's all the reason that we do this work and that we do this stuff in the first place. So with that, I'm going to leave that there. I hope that you had a really good week. I'm still sort of, just kind of playing with the format, how we do things. I was hoping that this would be fun and not preachy. I don't know. Channeling is channeling, but at the same time, I do think that, it speaks to the heart of this conflict, and there's a lot of anger here, and taking a stand and unlocking your power. It's not turning to stone and being rigid about comfort zones, being rigid around possibilities, being rigid around courage, being rigid around whether you're right or wrong, or you did it right or wrong, and now you can't trust yourself. All this stuff that we do to ourselves with these little monster gremlins that they hang on the back, and they tell us stories about all of these people and the things and what, and then we seed or little seed that we don't hit the sunlight. And so what we're kind of called to do here in taking the stand is your confidence comes from your inner authority. Your inner authority comes from character built through working with your own belief system and creating a belief system and having a belief system that holds when things don't go right, and is not contingent on whether you believed right or wrong, behaved right or wrong, made the right or wrong decision, because that's not how belief operates. Belief doesn't operate in certainty, it operates in process. It doesn't operate in outcome, it operates in inspiration. That's what the belief does. And so applying it right is pretty much everything. All right, let's leave it there. Sending you all love, and I'll see you again soon.